Hey, and welcome to our Wolff Monthly number 6. Today is all about thinners.
Yes.
So we're pretty excited about that. My name is Caleb Sneed, and I do sales and marketing here at Wolff Industries. This is Glenn Burke. He's our master trainer and technician here, and we're excited you guys have joined us. So a couple little housekeeping tips and announcements before we get started. Let us know where you're watching from in the comments. We're doing things a little differently today. Dan, who is our live stream technician, is working from home. So he's currently remoted in and he's controlling the cameras and everything from his house. I've got my phone set up over there doing FaceTime so he can see us. But if it crashes and burns, y'all know what's going on. If you see me run over kind of that direction, I'm running over to jump on the computer and try to keep things afloat. So just an FYI. Also, before we get into it, we do want to take a moment to mention that today is Pearl Harbor Day.
Yes.
This happened in 1941. It changed the course of history. 42, something like that. December 7th. Today is Pearl Harbor Day. We do remember the people who were involved in that. If you're unfamiliar with what that is, do a quick Google search on Pearl Harbor Day and read all about it. And maybe if you are familiar with it, go and watch some documentaries or read about it online and kind of update yourself. So did want to touch on that. This is the last of our live streams for the year. I know we're kind of doing things off from when we've had them scheduled, but that's because we're getting into the Christmas holidays. We've been doing this for 8 months now. We did 8 weeks, and then we've done 6 monthly live streams. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us and watching these. We did this originally as a supplement to lockdowns and everything that was going on because of COVID. Yes. We don't really know what 2021 holds, so we're playing a lot of that by ear. So the format of the live stream going forwards, we are looking at doing larger, more expanded streams on a quarterly basis. We want to take our show on the road, on location. We've got a facility in Columbus, Indiana, where we manufacture scissors. We would like to take you through the whole process of taking it from a rolled coiled steel all the way to the finished product. We would like to maybe even go and visit some of our vendors around the country and involve more sessions, more expanded sessions, involve more people, and do that on a quarterly basis. As far as a structured, scheduled stream, we are probably going to stop doing that. So we're going to look at doing our big quarterly stream, and then we will be doing pop-up streams as topics arise.
Yes.
So we're doing thinners today because lots and lots of people have been asking about thinners here recently, and so we want to make sure that we touch this topic. So if that happens going forwards, where we have an issue or a topic or whatever arise that we're getting a lot of chatter about online or a lot of questions asked to us, we can jump in and set up and do a live stream. So the best way to stay up to date and involved on all that is our social media, and make sure you're getting our emails, because we will probably send that out a week ahead of time, say, hey, we're going to do a live stream at this time on this topic. Look for more information on our quarterly streams after the new year. We're tentatively looking around the March time frame for our first big quarterly, but we don't have anything necessarily set in stone right now. So since my phone is over there FaceTiming, I'm going to try to monitor chat as best I can. I may be unable to respond to questions and stuff as quickly as I have in the past, but we do have David Wolff in the chat. He'll be able to provide answers and part numbers and anything else like that. I think that's all of my announcements, so we can jump into the meat. Let's do some bevel thinners on a twice as sharp.
Very good. It is really surprising about how many questions we have just specifically on thinners. And out of all the queries, it's which machine do you use? If somebody has a standard twice as sharp, what can you do on this? And with the 1,000 or the 100 grit standard sharpening wheel, you're just supposed to do standard bevel shears on this. What that'll look like is some of your grooming shears, where you have a standard bevel. You'll have your true thinners, where one set of teeth will have a bevel, the other set of teeth are going to have your notches. There's some of the lesser expensive kit shears that you'll see with students. Probably the most common I've seen is Burmax. They're a challenge, but still a standard bevel shear, and you would be able to do them on the standard twice as sharp. With a standard bevel shear, you don't have to take it apart. You'll just, now I've got this, I have preset my angle on for doing this double tooth thinner. You'll clamp it in, do your scratch test. Now again, I preset my angle, so I'm not going to have to change anything. I'm going all the way across the bevel, turn my machine on. Very light pass. If you can't make a real light pass because the blade's bouncing on the wheel, you need to dress your wheel. You want this contact to be as smooth as possible, just as soft a touch as you can create. I've got a slight burr. The sharpening process for a professional twice as sharp is you would sharpen both blades, spread to close, press to open. You're going to do this very lightly with a thinner, and that's going to pull that burr back that you just created. Reclamp, flip over to the honing position. On a thinner, you maintain that soft pressure. You can use slightly firmer pressure, but still, you don't want to heat up those blades or those teeth. Then you'll cut this honing burr off. I'm going to move this out of the way. It's just a standard 2-layer tissue. And depending on the gaps that you're going to have between the teeth, it'll either cut all the way through like this, or you may get a perforation. Now this particular tissue cuts great one direction and not another. But again, a standard bevel can be done on the professional twice as sharp. This can also be sharpened using the diamond wheel. Because we have finished the shear on the 800 grit honing wheel, the 600 grit honing wheel, the 800 grit diamond wheel is going to give you just a little shinier finish on it. And it may be that if there's very little damage to the shear, you'd be able to sharpen on the diamond wheel, cut the burr off, and test cut. This can also be done on the Hira-To. So the Hira-To is going to be able to sharpen your standard bevel, your semi-convex, and your convex. The diamond wheel, the Ookami Gold, is going to be able to, again, do the standard bevel, semi-convex, and convex. Your single limitation is going to be if all you have is the professional twice as sharp, you're going to be limited to the standard bevel type of edges that you'll be able to sharpen.
I have a question since I've touched some thinners before, but I'm definitely not, proficient at doing this. You did the spread to close, pinch to open with this. Is that because the teeth line up on both blades?
Well, the spread to close, press to open is if you have a burr on both blades, you don't want to cut through them. You want to be able to open them up.
Okay.
That spread to close, press to open. Because we only sharpen the blade that does not have the notches.
Okay, we're just sharpening the bevel.
You're only sharpening one edge.
Right.
Now that spread to close, press to open. If there's any kind of damage on the notched blade, you would want to address that kind of damage with the pink hone.
Okay.
So that when you do finally cut that honing burr off, then you're not recreating damage on the blade that you just sharpened.
Okay.
So yeah, the spread to close, press to open is whether it's a thinner or just a regular shear. It's so that the burrs, you don't close the shear burr against burr, especially the sharpening burr, but you will spread past them and then you would open those burrs up until the blades can pass one another without any interference.
Okay.
Again, this is a very thin tooth, thin gap dog grooming thinner. You've got the these might be called more of a texturizer, or I'm sorry, a blending shear.
Dan, can you get that top-down view?
Sorry, Dan.
It looks like what I thought was going to happen. Looks like Dan has lost connection and is unable to change the cameras. So I'm going to jump off screen here and see if I can figure it out real quick.
All right. When you have a real thin tooth and a thin gap, you're looking at a blending shear. This blending shear is going to be used by barbers to blend between your clipper cut and your comb cut. When you have slightly wider teeth, wider gaps, that's going to be more of your thinner. It's going to be removing more bulk. You have the texturizing shears that are very wide tooth and wide gap, again for texturizing. And then you have your chunking shears. We got that down? All right.
I got it switched.
Okay,
yeah.
here's your chunking shear. Again, you can see the notches in those teeth. You're not going to be sharpening this. This particular shear is a full convex. So you would sharpen the convex blade. Use your pink hone, white hone. This shear would be disassembled for sharpening. You have a texturizing shear. This particular shear is a full convex also. So you would need either the Ookami Gold or the Hira-To for sharpening that. More of your thinning type of shear, even though these are slightly wider teeth than you would find with a normal thinner. You have a narrow gap. This is a narrow gap as well between the teeth. This particular blade here, you would be able to sharpen the teeth. Be very careful, making sure that you put the ramp back in. That particular topic is covered on another video. I believe it's on week number 8. If you haven't seen the different weekly videos that we did, definitely be worth your while to go back and check those out. We have several videos, I think 4 different videos that are going to show you specifically inside line work on thinners, the differences between using the honing block and the whetstone, how to put the ramp back in, what happens when you accidentally take that ramp out. So it'd be very much worth your while to go back and review the weekly videos. I believe it's 8 and 7 and 3 and 4. I'll have to go back and see what I sent Dan. But if you have questions and you want to see something different using the different machines, I've got all 3 up here. I'm going to be doing a thinner on each one of them. And so this is the standard the professional twice as sharp on a standard bevel shear. I'm going to switch over to the Ookami Gold. And I'm going to sharpen a semi-convex. Now, I've got a plated shear, a coated shear, anodized. But the colored shear is easy to determine whether what type of edge you're sharpening. Anytime you see this coloring, it's going to be a semi-convex. This particular shear, you're going to have to disassemble. When it's apart, you'll be able to work your inside line on the honing blocks. And I'm going to use the honing blocks with the Ookami Gold. That's what comes with. We have our semi-convex. We'll preset this to 45. Do my scratch test. I like that. Good bird. I'm getting the tip real good. There we go.
Lynn, while you're doing this, Simon asked, how do you choose whether to take the shears apart to sharpen them?
Okay, your semi-convex and your convex shears have an inside line that have to be worked. You have to take them apart. There's no way to properly work your inside line without disassembling the shear. Your standard bevel shear does not have that inside line that needs to be worked and can be sharpened without taking them apart. So if it's a standard bevel, you don't have to take it apart. If it's a semi-convex or convex, you do have to take it apart. Pretty simple that way. All right, I'm going to take my deburr block, remove my burr, burr is removed, reestablish my ride line, polish my ride line. I'm going to hang on to this block. Then I'm ready to polish.
Slide it back a little bit.
Alrighty. How's that?
That's good.
Okay.
Well, maybe move it now. See, we've got a picture in picture. There you go.
All right. Flip over to my honing position. Now, I did not get my polishing compound. There you go. Thank you, sir. Light touch. I start in the entry on the outside edge of the wheel. Center of my blade will be in the center of the wheel. Tip of my blade will be on the inside edge. Compound off the shear. Got my pivot. Now, if you need to, just to clean up that inside, I'll take my finish paper and just put a real light polish. I don't want to remove a lot of material. I just want to make sure this inside line is nice and clean and smooth. Now I can reassemble. Make sure you have your washer. We'll drop the scissor lube. Spring, nut, there we go. And test cut. Tighten it up a bit. Looks good. And that's the Ookami Gold. Again, you can do this semi-convex on the Hira-To as well, but not on the professional twice as sharp. Remember that you've got to disassemble this in order to sharpen it properly. Next, I'm going to show a convexing shear on the Hira-To. How are we doing on the...
Here's your position.
All right. I'm going to move it out this way a little bit. All right. As sharpeners, you want to make sure you're not removing the notches on these teeth. There are some thinners that are designed to have a smooth, polished, finished edge on that tooth. This is, let's see, this one is a prime example of that. There are no notches across the teeth here. The tooth is designed to allow the hair to slide, and as it's sliding across the tooth, each tooth, it's cutting at a slight angle at each tooth. As the hair slides, it just cuts a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And so you don't get a flat cut, a finished cut like you would with a notch. You're going to get more of a slanted finish with the hair, with each tooth. So these teeth, it's possible to sharpen them, but you have to be careful that you don't remove the ramp. If you do remove the ramp, you have to know how to put it back on. If there are notches on there, it's to prevent that hair from sliding off. That notch is going to catch just a little tiny bit of hair, hold it in place, and you're going to cut that. Don't remove those notches. This particular shear is convex, and we're going to do it on the Kamigo, or on the Hira-To here. Disassemble. Make sure your washer comes out with your post. You don't want to lose that. Depending on the damage on the shear, that's going to determine where you're going to start with your abrasives. With this particular shear, it's never been used, so I'm going to start with a 15. I don't need to start with a 60 for a repair or anything like that. Start out about 5.5, which would be just a little bit higher than half speed. I'm going to go ahead and get the scratch test. I'm at 50 degrees, but I'm going to do a little scratch test first. Looks like that's what it's supposed to be. There we go. I went to 6. There's my burr. My 15. I'm going to speed it up to about 7. Yeah, good burr. Run a little bit better. Get it if you could. In that very last cabinet there is my polishing plate, which I have neglected to get out again. I think I did this last time I used the Hira-To. I'm up to 9. Thank you, sir. Nine is going to be my pre-polish. I'm going to slide this back and we'll be able to look at using the Whetstone. How's that? Start with the blade off, but my right area completely on. I'm going to pull back. And my burr is getting pulled off at the leading edge of my stone. Yeah, and this was covered on the different live streams when we did the weeklies. I like the rad line. Clean my pivot area. Ready for my polishing plate, which Caleb was so kind to get for me. Now this has got a very good coating of our diamond paste on it already. I'm going to slide this out just a little bit more. I'm going full speed with this. Is there a question?
Yes. One of the questions is, why do you use the Whetstone with the Hira-To and the papers with the Ookami?
That is a good question. One of the reasons is when the Ookami Gold was being developed, the use of whetstones was it was much longer learning curve, a little more difficult to teach, to learn. Where the honing blocks, very let's see, beginner user friendly. The honing blocks, I have had some sharpeners where they cannot get enough pressure to push the set out of a shear for the whetstone to work properly. They don't have that fingertip strength. The honing block doesn't need that. It makes the adjustment for the set just in the arc of the block itself. So in one aspect, that is very helpful to some sharpeners. The flat hone systems the mobile flat hone systems are designed to mimic the actual manufacturing of the shear. They're manufactured on either a stone, or they're using different types of abrasive, and they're working the convex into the shear. But they also use whetstones to finish them. So the whole process, the flat hone and the whetstone, work in conjunction with one another to mimic the manufacturing process. Another part of it is a lot of guys can't afford the 3200 to get started. So using the Ookami Gold with a little bit more time, as far as the sharpening process is, meaning time, they are able to reproduce a convex shear with a very good inside line. I believe there was a sharpener that just got a certificate from a certifying entity using the Ookami Gold, and it was good for them to see, and good for that certifier to see that the Ookami Gold puts together a very, very good sharpening. So as far as why one over the other, many times it comes down to personal preference. When I was mobile, all I had was the Ookami Gold. The flat hones just weren't out. You had some that were creating some modified home units using, I believe they were using like old sewing machine motors and for variable speed, and using 8-inch, 9-inch abrasive discs. I mean, it was pretty amazing. But the use of the whetstones was a gradual process coming into the industry. So we offer both.
Another question we got is what grit of whetstone do you use?
Okay. Again, this is going to come down to personal preference. The stone that we sell with the Hira-To is a 6,000 grit ceramic whetstone. One of the reasons, well, more than one of the reasons I'm going to give you, is the ceramic lasts a little longer between flattenings. You don't get as quick of a ground-in dip with a ceramic as you would with a natural stone. 8,000 is a typical finish. 10, you're you're getting up to that point where it's not necessary to be that high of a grit. 8 is a very, very good finish, but it removes material way too slow. It is strictly a polished type of stone, where the 6 will remove material quickly, but it'll also leave a real nice finish. So the shear closes real smooth. It's very quiet. So we're trying to find that middle ground where you're still removing material and you're leaving behind a real nice finish. The 6 does that. A 4, you really don't get that real smooth, quiet finish on the shear. So if you use a 4000 in order to remove more material to repair some damage, then you definitely want to go to a 6 or an 8 to make your finish on that. That's what the honing blocks are for. This is a 4000 grit. This is your 8000 grit. This will remove and remove damage and restore your inside line. Your 8000 is going to polish it.
Cool, awesome. Do you have some other little things you wanted to touch on here?
Just the Hira-To. If you're going to use it for standard bevel, you don't have to take them apart. Great majority of your standard bevel shears will fit in the clamp. If it won't fit in the clamp, then you have to disassemble. With your Ookami Gold and your professional twice as sharp systems, you're going to be clamping out on the blade, so you typically don't have to take the shear apart in order to sharpen it. If you have the Hira-To, you may have to disassemble your beveled shear. In this particular case, you will not disassemble this particular shear because it's got a flared or a rivet end on the screw, so this screw is not coming out. You'd have to be creative on if you're using the Hira-To on where you're going to clamp, but you're going to find that with maybe much longer grooming shears. You can't clamp in the pivot area like you would on a standard convex or semi-convex shear. You have to clamp in the middle of the blade just because the blade is so long.
Cool. We will let it run for just a few more minutes because I know you guys are kind of about a minute or so behind us. I want to give time to let any more questions come through. If we don't get to them here on the chat, on the live stream, we can answer them in the chat. You're also welcome to shoot either of us emails.
Yes.
My email is Caleb, CALEB, at Wolff, WOLFFIND.com. Wolffind.com, and yours is Glenn, GLEN, one N, at Wolffind.com. Cool. I'll keep an eye on the chat here as we're finishing up. Remember to make sure you sign up for our newsletter and our social media. You follow us on Facebook because those are going to be the two places that we will send out announcements right before we do a live stream. So if we're going to do one of these pop-up streams for a particular topic, that's where we're going to go put it, that we're going to be talking about it. So make sure you're following us on there. If you've got any other questions, shoot us an email, and maybe it will be a topic that we touch going forwards on another stream. And we'll be making the announcements on the quarterly streams very soon. I don't see any other questions coming through yet, so just want to say Merry Christmas.
Amen.
Merry Christmas. Have a good New Year, and we will be in touch very soon.
Yes. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, guys.